Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a discussion about one of the fundamentals of tilt management, RTS, and MOBA games. I have an example game for you here, and I was a little bit inspired to talk about this because of a Dota game that I played yesterday. In this Dota game, it was about 13 minutes into the match, and one of our players said, "It's over, GG, let them end." And that made me think, when is it the right time to give up when you're playing in a competitive game? When is your situation so bad that it's actually over? Because if you just noticed there, I accidentally double-clicked all of my drones and then clicked a worker patch, which puts me clearly behind. Should I give up now and let the Protoss end the game, or just surrender and leave? Or should we fight it out? This is a personal question that you can only answer for yourself. And in my opinion, I think there's a pretty large percentage of your overall matches where you start out behind and then you make a comeback. Let's say that's maybe half of your wins, actually. Or maybe we can be conservative. Let's say it's a third of your wins. A third of the wins that you get, you actually start out kind of behind. This start of the match, it's not comfortable for me at all. I'm taking my second base at the third, because the pro blocked it. I double clicked all my workers, and don't worry, it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse, but I have what's called fighting spirit, and that means that I'm gonna keep fighting because I know that the player or team that's ahead can throw the game at any point and for any reason. So if I just keep trying, a lot of times you can go from being super duper behind to being in an even position or even ahead. So this game here, we can just kind of zoom through the action to the next major fumble that I make. But the take home here is when you're playing these kinds of games, games that involve combat and violence against the other side, stuff is going to get scuffed. It's going to get very scuffed. And your ability to manage the scuff and to deal with an unbalanced situation and try to regain your balance is one of the marks of a really robust and strong player. You could call it the player's mental resilience stat, where it's their ability to deal with a bad situation and still press on. You do have a lot of fair weather gamers where they'll try hard as long as things are going well for them, and then as soon as they don't go well for them, they'll blame their opponent's strategy, they'll blame the game, they'll blame their teammates, they'll do anything they can to deflect responsibility, and they'll kind of throw their hands up in the air and say, "It's over, we don't stand a chance to win." So I'm trying to macro up here, but something extremely bad is about to happen to my home base. This is the second time I played this opponent today. The previous match, they went for an adept all-in and beat me. So I see this here, and I had scouted some adepts that were in the wall, so I thought that they were doing it again. And I made a mistake by not building spores at 4:15 at the latest, and something very dreadful is about to happen to my base. Look at this. Dark Templar are being warped in. The queens are in a good position, so good on the queens for applying the pressure, but uh-oh. I have 43 workers and 0 spores. Actually, I have 1 spore at the third that's on the way here. But this is about to get really bad. Dreadful. I was so ready for adepts. But this is not an adept, is it? My queens are injecting. I'm sending the drones away. And I'm just trying to minimize my losses here. I'm going to lose a lot of stuff. My worker situation is looking worse by the second here. And since I'm an adult, and this is my ladder game, I could quit out if I wanted to. I have DTs in my base, no detection and no lair. My queens are getting chopped to pieces, my drones are being killed, my lings can't do anything because the target is invisible. But I chose to keep fighting because I know that sometimes the opponent will overestimate their advantage and they'll make a fumble and you can get back in the game. So let's just kind of watch how this plays out here. This feels bad. It's not a pleasant situation for me to be in at all. But my lair is done. My drones are even called in to fight. This is just such a bad situation. But what is my opponent failing to do during all of this mayhem and chaos? They haven't been probing up properly. Their probe up time has been pretty poor. They haven't been spending their chrono boost. They don't have a forge on the way, but they did take a third. So they are macroing behind this, but yeah, they're not playing perfectly here. The Prism goes back into the main here. They're trying to warp in more DTs. And then the Queen's trying to go for the Prism. The Overseer is here providing detection. And then the Warp Prism went back in to save the DTs, and the Queens killed the Prism, thus removing that warp in danger on my side of the map. And they killed all the DTs inside, so they can't make Archons with that. So we went from me being in a poopy garbage, icky, ouch, yuck time to my opponent then making a key mistake. I made the first couple key mistakes, double-clicking my workers and messing up my mining at the start, and then forgetting to make spores, just one per base at 4 minutes if you want to write that down for your Zerg business. But I took a lot of damage. I lost 18 drones. Feels bad, man. But it's not over because we have fighting spirit, and we're not a punk bitch who's going to give up because we lost a couple drones. No, we're going to keep fighting because there's a chance. There's a chance that my opponent will throw just by making a couple fumbles here and there. If I just stick to a plan and keep trying, you'll surprise yourself at the amount of times that you can still win. So my Lings go and scout. I see a third base that's being taken, which tells me I can probably go for at least 66 workers. So I'm going for roach speed now, just trying to reach some power spike of 3 base saturation, all the bases injected. My Queen stayed alive, which is good, and I'm generating the energy there. So I'm just trying to do what I can with what I have. I see my opponent is taking their gases here. I think I go for a Ling scout of that. See my vision. The Ling runs up, and that's a really good scout. So now the Ling is going to watch for a 4th base. And I see a probe here. So now I see my opponent is trying to go for macro. So because I was the one who took some damage early, I'm going to try to take the front foot here. I'm behind in workers, so I want to deal some damage to try to catch up. And this is a risk, right? My opponent could defend this perfectly. It's possible, I don't know everything that they have going on. I have some partial scouting information, but I know that they're trying to go for a bunch of money. And I do know that they lost the Prism and the DTs earlier on. So I'm using a supply lead here, just some simple Roach Ravager to try and contest this space. And then now I'm going to try something. This is called the random Zergling Yeet. I'm just going to try to send some units in and see if they have wall discipline. I don't know if they have a unit in the wall, but I'm going to test it. Because GM players make this mistake a lot, especially if they use F2 a lot. Oh my god! My opponent made another huge fumble. So they lost the Prism with the DTs, and now the door was wide open. The Lings just ran in, and now I'm about to be ahead in workers. We're tied up. More probes are going down here. That was a misclick. They misclick workers from the main. Somehow they were hotkey. They went from the assimilators here. This is disastrous for my opponent. And this is because I kept fighting through the match and mistakes happen. We are mortals playing these games. We make mistakes. At your bracket, players make mistakes. At my bracket, players make mistakes. This is a top 100 Grandmaster player making some mistakes. That's how these video games go. So don't give up too quick. I see it in Twitch chat sometimes. Oh, streamer's super dead here. And then I end up winning, and that's just their ignorance and their lack of fighting spirit. You could say that maybe you have a lower chance of winning, but to just throw in the towel, I think, is pretty immature and pretty weak. And one of the things that you can work out for yourself, kind of like a mental muscle, is your ability to handle a scuffed situation and keep your composure and keep trying to do stuff. So we've got a well-saturated base here. We've got an almost perfectly saturated base here. This base is saturated. And now I have a 4th base, and my Queens are going to inject it. So this is starting to look like a normal game, and now I have a huge supply lead. And this is after losing 18 drones to DT Prism. Where we could have just said, oh, I forgot spores, GG. I forgot spores. I'm just going to try to do my best and see if my opponent messes up. Use the tools that I've created for myself. And then lo and behold, we are pushing in here with some confidence. I made Hydras because I figured there wouldn't be much Storm, because they went for Dark Shrine instead of Templar Archives. And I have backup Overseers here too to deal with the DTs. So yes, you can start from a very scuffed position, but it's still very possible to make a comeback. You just need to keep trying, and oftentimes your opponent will surprise you with mistakes, just like you get surprised by your own mistakes. That's one of the things you can rely on, is the players are going to mess up. So if you keep trying your best, you'll win a lot of games. This would be the kind of match where, because we had the mental resilience to fight through it, we were able to get somewhere and then get ahead in this match and then win. But a lot of players might have been in that situation and they just quit out because they took a bunch of damage. How many workers did we lose total? It was only those 18 from the beginning. And then after that, we killed more workers than them and ended up winning the game. So, fighting spirit, allow yourself to fall behind. Allow yourself to be in the situation where the opponent or the opponent team has the advantage, and you don't need to poop your pants. You don't need to BM your team. You don't need to berate people. You don't need to whine and complain. You don't need to throw in the towel. You can keep trying your best, because that's what really can help make not just a good gamer in this current match, but a strong gamer over time, is someone who can deal with adversity, who can accept adversity, and then just try to figure out, how can I make a comeback? What are the comeback mechanics in the game that I'm playing? In StarCraft, you have defender's advantage. You have aggression is a comeback mechanic. You can check people's wall-offs with lings and things like that. If you're playing a game like Dota, you can use high ground defense. You can group up as a team. You can go for split pushing and try to base race them. There are so many options. So before you decide to give up, think about what options you have. And if you have maybe a greater than 0% chance of winning, you can play it out. I just wanted to talk about this fundamental because I had been dealing with some very weak-willed Dota players on my team recently. And I think that's a practice that we can all improve upon, is being able to accept, I am now behind slightly and I need to do this to survive the next phase of what my opponent can do. This has been a public service announcement to the gamers who have been complaining and whining and giving up too soon. Please stop doing that. Be strong like Brunt, and you can win a lot more than you have been in the past. Thank you. And this is one of the fundamentals that the world needs to know about for gaming.